Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistant's assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New subscribers only. Renew for 12 months to lock in savings. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The Valentine's rush is here. If you haven't already ordered a bouquet that's guaranteed to wow from 1-800-Flowers.com, listen up. Right now, when you lock in your order today, you'll save over 20% off 2 dozen romantic red roses. Plus, you'll get a free vase. This offer from 1-800-Flowers is only good while supplies last. So stop what you're doing and save over 20% off your bouquet with 1-800-Flowers. Order today at 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST.
Hi guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Heavy Metal Tones with me, your podcast host, Tony Evans, or Heavy Metal Tones as I like to call myself. This week's episode is about the Porcupine Tree album, Fear of a Blank Planet. Fear of a Blank Planet. I get the teeth in. They're rotting today. It's one of the best of the modern progressive concept albums by one of the best modern progressive bands. We're about to release a new album, so this is quite timely. There's been a big hiatus between the last albums because Stephen Wilson, the singer and founding member of the band, went off to do his solo projects, which is a whole different other podcast, which I look forward to chatting to you about, as he's one of my favourite musicians. But this is about Fear of a Blank Planet. Released on the 16th of April 2007, and it's named after the Public Enemy album that came out in 1990. That one's about race, and this one is about teenage drug use, computer use, and the modern malaise of the teenager in general. I first came across Porcupine Tree when I saw Marillion and they were supporting, and then I was given a free CD at the gig that had Porcupine Tree and Marillion on it as well. Now this is Hogarth era Marillion, not Fish era Marillion, and of course Stephen Wilson went off to record and write with Fish on a couple of albums, notably on Sunsets on Empire, a brilliant album. It's about, as I said, it's a concept about broken homes and screen time and narcotic overuse, prescribed and otherwise. It's a dark album. Certainly that's the case. It's not a light, flowing, easy listening album, but then again, a lot of prog albums, and I would really put this definitely right square in the middle of traditional prog, considering it's 2007 and prog has been, as you know from listening to this program, unsexy and untrendy for a long time, although now in the metal community, prog metal is sort of very hip. You know, very interesting stuff is coming out in that subgenre. So what it is it's based on a book by it's based on a book it's based on a story of a boy called Robbie, and he's 11-year-old. Now, in the book it's based on a male adult member of the family. It's by a book by an author called Bret Easton, and it's Luna Park. Now, I've never read Luna Park. I would sort of say it could be quite dark. I do struggle to read a lot these days anyway, with all the time I have to do with other things. Reading is one of those things that sort of sits on the back burner. It is on my list to listen to read. So yes, it was based on a book by Luna Park. So instead of the adult male, Stephen Wilson and the boys flipped it and made it the boy, Robbie. Many of the lyrics are lifted directly from the novel, particularly in the song My Ashes, which is about the scattering of the father's ashes, basically, after his death. I did say it was light. Stephen Wilson is well known for his his bleakness. He doesn't really write light, friendly music. Even his later albums were, even though they're more poppier, are certainly more darker. All right. So when I first listened to this book, listened to this album, I was really taken in by its underlying story and its underlying points of view. We've all been touched in our families with someone who, particularly in the modern world, needing medication to level out their mood and to reduce anxiety. And what I think with what Steve and the boys are doing with this album is, I mean, it's not the most liked Porcupine Tree album. In fact, I think it's the most least liked Porcupine Tree album, interestingly, which I think is a very, very silly thing to say, because I think it's one of their best. And I'll get to that in a minute. But so we've all been touched by someone. We know someone who takes something to medicate themselves, to ease their balance, whether it's whether it's prescribed drugs for mood, whether it's a bit of weed for relaxation, alcohol. All of us at one time have used some kind of mood-altering drug, and this sort of points at sort of where it begins in modern life, and it's very poignant because I mean, I am of an age now where when I was a kid, I knew no one except my mother. My mother was on Valium. Now, Valium is a really horrible, pernicious and nasty drug that doctors just, my mum was going through menopause, extremely unwell in a marriage. She wasn't very happy either. I'm not going to go down that route, but anyway, it was a tough time, and a lot of children and no money and stress and menopause and all this sort of stuff, unhappy marriage. And what happens? Go to the doctors with these symptoms, and instead of them saying, hey, this is bad. I mean, remember, this is 1973, guys, 74, 75. Instead of going, oh, hey, let's send you to psychologists. Let's talk this. Let's get this into groups and forums. No, it was just, here's some happy pills, toddle off, and take those. And it did the opposite to Mum. Mum just became this somnambulistic. She used to have brightness to her eyes, my mother, until this happened. Anyway, sorry, I'm going down a dark rabbit hole, but this album has that darkness to it. So this is what I was trying to say. So it's really poignant. When what was happening back in the 70s is that those drugs were aimed at the middle-aged women and I'm going to use this, I've got my fingers in speech marks, the mentally inadequate. And I didn't mean it, I couldn't think of the right words to say, but I don't want to offend anyone out there, but you know what I mean, right? This was the dark ages back then, really, guys. Now it seems to be starting at a much earlier age, and this is because I think As Steve is pointing out in this album, it's screen time, it's the use of pornography, it's the, I mean, you know, when I was a kid, if you wanted to get pornography, you got it like everyone else did. You got it you found it in a bush or on a train station platform, or your brother bought it home in a brown paper bag and you found it under his mattress. That was the way you got pornography. And most of the time it was, and let's be honest and rude here, it was tits and bums. It was not gynecological, which it seems to be these days. And of course, unfortunately, sorry, I have some tea now. The youth today, they're not, you know, I mean, not everyone, but most of them are not growing at a rate that's natural for the species. There's no defined, it doesn't seem there's defined factors in life. Now it's, by the time you've got a phone in your hand, you're old enough, I don't know, to do all sorts of unimaginable, unspeakable things. And this is terrifying to me, and I think to Steve and to a lot of people. And this, while this album talks to me, and I have 2 daughters, and I feel this way about that. Luckily, they were born pre-internet, or the birth of the major part of the internet, or the spawning of its, you know. So, you know, my oldest was born in 95, and my youngest was born in 97. So, you know, just before that, they never had a mobile phone till they were 18, and I wouldn't allow a TV or computers in their bedrooms. Now, this sounds draconian to some of you people out there, but it isn't. It made them balanced, safe, and educated. If they needed to find something, we went to the library. You got it out of a book, or you asked someone else who knew about it, or you watched a documentary on the ABC in Australia, or BBC in the UK, or NBC in the US, wherever you are, or public broadcasting, whatever. So these distinct factors have been stolen, I think, from our children, and so there is more need for them to medicate, because they don't have these clearly defined parameters which their brains need to grow and to mature. I mean, we all know people that are not mature, even born before the age of the internet. We've all been there. We know them, but they're all slightly different people, right? Anyway, so back to the album. So yes, get a chance to read Luna Park. I've got it. I haven't read it yet. I want to read it. Now, again, the lyrics, here's a nice long word for you guys. I'm going to try and say it. They deal with the neural behavioral disorders. So in teenagers, so you've got your attention deficit disorder, and ADHD, and all these sort of things, right? Bipolar, sorry, which are going on, and information overload, as we just talked about before. Once you know what it's talking about, you cannot listen to this album in any other way but with that frame of mind, and it can sometimes take away the enjoyment of this album to me, because it actually can, so on occasion, can do the opposite and make me a little bit depressed, when music should open up and remove that depression. Anyway, that's what the album does. I've made a note here that I think this is Porcupine Tree's The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Big call, big call, because The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is the greatest concept album / progressive rock album ever made. I will fight anyone in my corner for that one. There are other people out there that will say differently, but this truly is, and I think it's theirs. I mean, they've done some brilliant albums, and Stephen Wilson's solo records, the hand that kind of raised, is an amazing album, and he's his best concept album of a solo album. But that's a different story, another day, another episode. I don't want to get all my good ideas out early, so this is for another podcast. Is a Stephen Wilson one. Just a side note, he is a musical auteur. He produces and remixes and reinvigorates classic albums. He's done a lot of Marillion album. He's done Jethro Tull, King Crimson. He's a multi-instrumentalist and just one of the best live performers you'll ever see. We went to see him the first time in Sydney, my mate John and I and Parksy, and I said, "Oh no, we better get there early so we can get a good place to stand." Is at the in Sydney at the I've gone blank where I saw them. Anyway, a venue in Sydney. So we'll come back to you in a minute. Anyway, we went off for drinks and we came back, and the line was down the alley, past the gig, round the corner, down, and we were in the middle. We were at the end. I was like, oh, "I told you, Steve. I told you," but because we didn't think, because it's Australia, that he would have the following that he does. But it's global with Stephen. It's absolutely global. It's amazing where they come out of the tree woodwork. It really does. Us prog heads are everywhere. But we're going to talk about the actual album when I get on the other side, the music and the track listing. So I'm going to now refresh my tea, and I will talk to you soon, guys. See you after the ads. Bye.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New subscribers only. Renew for 12 months to lock in savings. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome back, guys. So, Fear of a Blank Planet, the 9th studio album of Porcupine Tree, one of many, many, many albums that they've produced over the years, live and studio, EPs and so on. So, we're going to look at the tracks. So musically, the band consists... Oh, sorry, I knocked the mic. God, bloody hell. I've got this new mic arm and I still knock it. Sorry, guys. Oh, many sorries. Okay, so if you're holding your earphones going, that was loud, I apologise. So the band consists of Stephen Wilson, as we mentioned, on vocals and guitar. Now, I'm going to absolutely butcher this name, but Richard Barbieri on keyboards. That's Colin Edwin on bass and Gavin Harrison on drums. Now, Colin and Pete and Richard have been with the band on and off a long time. The sound, before we go track by track, this is the heaviest of the Porcupine Tree albums, I think. This is when Steve goes in and out of different musical. He, like me, loves all forms of music. He loves pop and jazz and prog and metal and punk and new wave and rap, and he loves it. And so this was his sort of, I think he liked to call it his metal phase. It is very heavy compared to other things he's done, but it's not. I mean, for you metalheads out there will love it because musically it is heavy. It's got very lush, deep, thick substance to its music. It is very layered. It is very produced, as it would be with Stephen. It has some wonderful guitar. It's mixed forward, particularly on Fear of a Blank Planet. None of these songs, typically with prog, are short songs. He did have... So, when it comes to it, Steve wanted this album to be every song to flow into itself. He wanted it to go no longer than 50 minutes because he thought that and again, a man after my own heart, he feels that we are pushing too much into the medium and our attention spans are getting lost. Again, right click back to the music, and the concept of the album, attention spans and teenagers. All right. We want to be able to listen to it in one sitting and enjoy it in one sitting. It was produced by Dave. Hang on. Can't read my own handwriting. 1 second, guys. Idiot. Dave Stewart. Not the Dave Stewart of the Eurythmics. No. Dave Stewart, who was in a band called Hatfield and the North. Now, I lived off the motorway growing up as a child on the off the North Circular, and I always saw a sign that said Hatfield and the North. Very interesting synergy, but they were a very interesting prog band of the 70s that no one knows. I highly recommend, when you've stopped this and you want to hear some interesting prog, go and look out for Hatfield in the North. I think you might find it really interesting. So really good prog heritage there in the production of the band. So it's thick, lush, layered, heavy, stark. Of course, it's not going to be light. I mean, the subject matter is not, Tweedledee and Tweedledum and fields of flowers, is it? So it's going to be... there are going to be moments in it where it almost feels drug-induced. It almost feels... now, I'm not saying you all out there have had dizzying highs in your life, but some of you, and I'd say probably a majority of listeners, as I said, one time or another, may have tried a little bit illicit. And sometimes you might have had these moments, and in these moments, and it can happen with alcohol as well, that there is a sort of whirlpool of noise and movement where, what did my brother used to say? You knew you weren't drunk, truly drunk, until when you lay on the floor you had to hold on. And as I said earlier before on another podcast, my brother took LSD, and when he said people take LSD and go to a party, he could understand it, because when he took LSD, he was the chair. He couldn't leave for a week. Right, so there's moments, and this is what it feels like when you listen to this music. And so it starts with Fear of a Blank Planet, with some very unsettling and disturbing lyrics, which don't play this in front of your mum or questionable people first up, because there might be some lyrics in it that might offend. He doesn't mean to. He's just trying to put across how a teenager would leave me alone, go away, lock the door, dystopianism, So here's some of the lyrics that I think are really interesting, cutting edge. So I'm stoned in the mall again, terminally bored, shuffling around the stores, and shoplifting is getting it's so last year's thing. Xbox is a god to me, a finger on the switch. My mother is a bitch. My father gave up, never trying talking to me. I mean, it has that sense of if you've ever had teenagers, and I have had them, and I'm sure some of you have even got them now. There is that sense of disconnect after a certain age. Not that my kids were like that, but there is that disconnect. Don't try engaging with me. The vaguest of shrugs, the prescription drugs. You'll never find a person inside. My face is Mogadon. Curiosity has given up on me. I'm turning out desires. The pills are on the rise. I mean, it is, as I said, quite stark, right? And at that time when I first listened to Porcupine Tree, I was really getting back in after a lull out of heavy rock and heavy metal because of the young children, and it really spoke to me. And it was like, oh my god, I'm listening to an edgy, hard version of Marillion. I'm listening to a modernized version of something Gabriel would write. and as not as wordy as Gabriel, maybe not as wordy as Fish, but certainly an interesting lyricist. He doesn't use rhyming couplets as much. He's not about every second line has to rhyme. Yeah, and there we go. All right, then move on to My Ashes. This is the one I said is more connected to the book and Luna Park, and is about the scattering of the ashes of his father through the eyes of his son. Brilliant music. Again, flowing, heavy, hallucinatory, sad. Again, I'm not saying. I'm going to say again. It's not an album to put on to raise your spirits. Let's just say that. Anyway, we then go on to. And now I forgot to mention that this album has two very key musicians on that are jumping in and helping out, and you'll find out in a minute. So then we come into a suite of songs. This little suite, is 3 songs that blend into one, and I think they make a valid point for one of the strongest pieces of modern music of the last 25 years. Very, very, very intricate. It's very much like Fish's Highwood Suite from his album that he released a few years ago about the First World War, A Feast of Consequences. Again, jump in and listen to that. Fish does a very good version of this, and I think you probably listened to this suite here, and then not copied, but got the idea. It starts with Anaesthetize. Wow is all I'm going to say to you guys. If you YouTube it, watch him play it live. My friend John sent me a link recently of a live version of it recently. Just mind-blowingly, so many different movements, so many different intricate ins and outs, ebbs and flows. The vocal is almost sung through a broken mic, and the keyboards are swelling and rushing. The bass is thunderous, and the drums are almost again sound like they've been covered, so they don't resonate. They just snap. This has guitar on it from featuring Alex Lifeson from Rush. Now, what a great coup that is. Again, some people wouldn't put Rush as a prog band. Some people say they're not. Some people say they are. I think they truly are. But in that sort of vague American, gentle giant kind of progness. Because I don't believe that prog is prog unless it's British. And that sounds... it's going to sound... I don't think punk is punk unless it's English either. And the reason I say that is because it's a very prog is a very British sound. It's something that could only really have come out from the private school movement of the UK. Now, in the UK public school movement, public schools are the rich schools with Etons and Harrows of this world. And then after we follow Anaesthetize, which is I think probably 7, 8, 9 minutes, it goes into The Pills I'm Taking. Again, all right. It flows. You hear the story, okay? Anaesthetize, Blank Planet, Pills I'm Taking, and then Surfer, which is about people living in a cyber world and their world and life being taken over by screen time and everything not being real. I mean, there was a panic, wasn't there, back in the early 2000s that everything was going to come digitized. I mean, a classic example is myself. So I used to be in the film industry. I was in special effects. I used to do a lot of physical special effects. So prosthesis, monster suits, makeup, special effects, and so on. Round about that time, 2007 to 2010, is when I stopped because it was all getting done digitally. So apart from, say, Lord of the Rings, which had a fantastic prosthesis department, it was all starting to go that way. Lawnmower Man, Remember that movie? And then they remake of the Cat People, and it was all digitized, and so our art was dying. And I think a lot of people were thinking that way back then, that we were going to lose, we were going to lose our youth to the world of zeros and dashes and dots and ones and the cyber world. Clearly not the case. We know that, but all new things are feared. That Surfer does that, and then we come out of that wonderful little suite. So as I said to you, it was released as on CD, so it could flow in one motion, but also on a double vinyl. If you're ever lucky to have one of the the first 100 which were numbered, they're worth. I mean, they're going. I had a guy who tried to sell me one for $1,000. If I had all the money in the world and could afford that, yes, I'd buy it. I probably would. So if you've got one of those in your collection, bloody look after it. They reissued them again in 2015 on blue vinyl double. That's also worth a fair bit of money now. Still a great print, but I think that the vinyl doesn't work so much for me in this particular album, because you need it to flow. Stopping and turning it over can lose that that sort of dystopian flow that you get, that Lovecraftian Babylonian end of the world cyber feel, that the motion that you get lost on vinyl when you've got to get up and the spell is broken when you've got to turn the record over. Now, you know me, I love vinyl, so to say that's quite odd, but I generally mean that. The CD version is probably better, and even now that it's available on Spotify and on iTunes, even better for that. Then we move to Sentimental, Way Out of Here, and then and they're the last two tracks. Sentimental, again, it's a sort of a lyrical look at. Imagine the 11-year-old boy looking back at these things that have happened. He's anaesthetized his brain to pornography, and his dullness of senses to the drugs that he's taking, his disassociated family, lightness, hey guys? You might need to go and watch some Bambi after this. Although, no, don't do that. Bambi dies. And no, maybe go and... I don't watch any Disney, by the way. Don't like Disney. Go and watch, I don't know, something that makes you laugh. Go and watch Frasier, or I've been watching recently under Benji's recommendation, Dairy Girls. Highly recommend it. Brilliantly funny. You do need to concentrate because the Irish accents are quite strong. The Way Out of Here. Again, I'm not going to ruin what the story is. I want you to listen to the song and understand what it's about. But the lyric itself, Way Out of Here. It can read two ways, can't it? Way out of here, man, or the way out of here. And that's where it gets very dark. Now, this particular track features the guitar of the prog king himself, Robert Fripp. He who is married to Toyah Willcox. If you want a bit of a laugh, in lockdown, Toyah and Robert did these little videos on YouTube. I'm going to sound sexist here, but I spent most of my time looking at Toyah's tits. I have been a massive Toyah fan since I was a teenager, and there she is dancing around almost topless. I couldn't take my ass off them. Again, I don't want to offend any or be rude or lose any fans listening to this. I'm just being honest. But yes, go and watch those. Robert Fripp, King Crimson, probably one of the top 10 greatest guitarists of all time. Prog guitarists of all time. I must put a caveat on that. He's up there with your Stephen Hackett's and Robert Fripp, and he's up there with with all the greats. He's just brilliant. Alex Lifeson, there we go, two of the greats on one album. Steve has this way of getting people to play for him. He's a very gifted musician. People want to play for him. His live performances, wow. Again, that's another episode, but twice we've seen them, and both times, I think John and I jaws on the floor, right? You couldn't take your eyes off. He had Dave Kilminster on guitar. Oh my God, right? And John and I like to laugh, but Nick Beggs on bass. Now, Nick Beggs, if you don't know who he is, a big 6'5" towering man, likes to wear dresses on stage, long blonde hair, used to be in Kajagoogoo. Don't ever put that against him. He is a fucking brilliant bass player, and he's full of character. He cannot take your eyes off on stage. It's like watching John Entwistle, right? It's just brilliant. He has this awe of him. He plays finger and picking, and he has a sort of a Chris Squire stance. He's so big that it makes the bass look like a twig in his hands. And then we've got Altman on keyboards, and he has played with Miles Davis. Just unbelievable. Anyway, enough of that. That's for another episode. But this is the album. So do please listen to this album. Please take a listen to anything Porcupine Tree. I think you might find yourself going down a rabbit hole and finding stuff you love. Go then onto the Steven Wilson albums. Don't start from his latest work back, because you might be disappointed. Start from his first and work forward, because his later ones are a bit more lighter, a bit more ABBA-esque, a bit more, it might not be your kind of thing, but once you've listened to the first stuff and worked forward, you might find yourself enamoured. Hand at Carter Ray's is perfect as a concept album, and it's just wonderful as a piece of music on its own. He also had such a variety. I've got to stop soon, but I could go all day about the musicians he's played with. Go there, do your Porcupine Tree, get this album, have a listen, tell me what you think musically and lyrically. I know what I've read into the lyrics. You can read the lyrics and read what you want into them. It not light, so it is something I do. I often run a hot bath or in the bath, and I'll put that on. And I need somewhere solitary to take it in. I can't listen on the bus, going for a walk or for a run. It's the kind of thing you need to time to listen to and to concentrate on. But for me, I think it's a 5 out of 5 album. As I said, one of the greatest concept albums of the last 30-40 years. It is well ahead of its time. Steve is well ahead of its time. His time, so the rest of the guys in the band. It's not just Steve. They are musically gifted, and it's produced beautifully. So that's Fear of a Blank Planet. It's available on all good streaming services. Speaking of streaming services, please find me on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you go. When you find it, I don't have any yet, but please, could people just go on little 3 dots at the top of the screen and give me a rating out of 5 stars. It just helps me get more audience. It's how the algorithm works. Also, if you want to jump on to buy me a coffee, I'll put a link underneath. All donations are welcome. This show does cost to make. I had to buy a new boom arm for this, as I said. It wasn't cheap. Anyway, that aside, I look forward to talking to you next week. I really enjoyed chatting about this album. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Slightly longer again this week like last. I just can't cram all this into half an hour. In fact, I could have gone longer and longer, in fact. And I hear some people go, yay, and others will go, oh God, can you shut up? Anyway, that's me done. I hope that you have a very safe week. For all those that are in peril at the moment in this world, I raise my cup of tea to you. Good luck, keep safe, and may the world get peaceful again soon. Either way, talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hey y'all, I'm Taryn Finley, host of a new podcast from HuffPost called I Know That's Right. Each week, I'll be taking you on a ride where mainstream media and the depths of internet culture collide. Joined by a rotating cast of friends and guests, we'll be breaking down the weekly what's what and who's who of pop culture. You need a show that separates the mess from the stuff that makes you say, I know that's right? Don't worry, girl, I got you. Check out I Know That's Right, wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.